Hello, students, and welcome to this Career Day interview. I am interviewing Andrew Czaplicki today. Andrew, if you could please let us know what your career is and some steps that you had to take to get to where you are now.
Well, howdy. My name is, again, Major Andrew Czaplicki, and I am an officer in the U.S. Army National Guard. And I currently serve as the Deputy Commander for the Richmond-based 34th Chemical, Biological, Radiological, Nuclear, High-Yield Explosive, Enhanced Response Force Package. Uh, so that's a lot, it's a mouthful, but I serve in the Domestic Operations branch of the National Guard. So my focus has always been to serve communities, our state, and the country when needed. So recently, we did a lot of work with the COVID-19 pandemic. We did all the testing in nursing homes. We also sent a lot of troops up into D.C. after the protests went sour there. So we do quite a lot. But yeah, I mean, I started off at the Greenville High School. I knew I always wanted to be in the military. I came in a military family, so it kind of seemed like a natural progression for me. So I had to go to college to become a leader in the Army. So I knew that I had to kind of pick my career path to make sure I got into a college. And early in high school, I really didn't know what that one was. But as I kind of thought about it, I really liked military. I had a lot of zeal. So I applied to a bunch of military colleges. So I applied to Norwich University up in Vermont. I applied for the Citadel down in South Carolina. I applied to the U.S. Military Academy at West Point, and also to the Virginia Military Institute in Lexington. So as I kind of weighed my options and went back and forth, I also kind of wanted the college experience where I could be away from home. So I ultimately settled on the VMI, and after high school, I went to VMI 2 months later, and I spent 4 years there learning how to be me, I guess.
And
But
that's a perfect segue, I think. So, learning how to be you. So, once you became you and have this official job title, what is it that you do day to day? Like, walk us through a typical day in your field of work.
my day starts off with usually some kind of physical fitness. The military is big on health and wellness, and I have to maintain certain standards. So, me playing sports back in high school, playing curricular sports and NCAA sports in college, it all kind of marries together. So I do physical fitness every day, or most every day, and then I get to work and I do a quick staff meeting. I have about 20 soldiers that I supervise, and then I also have 5 airmen with the Air National Guard that I supervise. And we kind of just kind of get together, orient ourselves for the day, talk about any leftovers from the day prior, and then I move into budget transactions. For my role as the major in the office, is I predominantly deal with budget and logistics. So I'll review a number of budget transactions for both personnel as well as equipment and material. So I run about a $3 million budget, which is kind of small in the grand scheme of things, but it's kind of big for me. So I run a lot of budget transactions first thing, and then I move into a lot more of the exercise design and planning. As an emergency response team, we have to do a lot of training. And so I only get my people together 3 or 4 times a year. So when I do, we really try to capitalize on partnering with a locality or a state or even some of our national partners like FEMA. So I spend a lot of time doing exercise design and planning.
Yeah, a lot of collaboration too. It sounds like a ton of teamwork there.
Yes, and it's interesting because you run into people that you never would have thought about running into. Again, playing the same sandbox with people, and you eventually you talk to them, you learn about their background, and you find that one of the folks that you work with in D.C. is actually a graduate of Cairo Durham, and
Right.
it's just it was neat talking about their old stomping grounds together in the middle of a D.C. response.
That's cool. So, what do you love most about your job?
So, being an Army officer in the Army National Guard, it's a challenging and rewarding kind of give and take. There's outrageous challenges with having most of my people be part time. Uh, so I only see them once a month, maybe. And so I work with them for 2 days a month. The other 28 or so are theirs. So it's hard to influence and develop things over time. So I guess the biggest challenge is when I finally get them for those 2 or 3 days, it's got to be done right. I can't afford to lose time because I forgot something or somebody else forgot something. So like everything has to be planned really, really well, and that puts a lot of stress and pressure on. But I don't know, I kind of like it.
So your biggest challenge is also your greatest love, kind of solving those problems and getting it done.
Absolutely. I mean, I love solving problems, and I think that's I don't know. It's what makes the day interesting.
Yeah, yeah, those little accomplishments throughout the day. So I think you've touched on this a little bit, but I'm wondering, a student may select this video because they're interested in being in the U.S. Army or holding a leadership position such as yours. What kind of skills do you feel are needed for this job? And understandably, you went through some pretty rigorous training to receive those jobs, so there's those trainable skills, but also maybe soft skills as well. What do you feel are the most important skills to be effective in this career?
Yeah, so the Army teaches you pretty much how to do everything. There's a manual, there is an instructor, there's instruction, and they teach you just about everything about being a leader. So I've been in leadership training since I signed up. They taught me how to be an Army leader, which is different than like a different type of leader because there's different missions, there's different roles and tasks and purposes. But they taught me how they wanted me to communicate. They taught me how they wanted me to solve problems. They taught me how to build an Army team. They teach you everything you need to be successful to do the mission of the day. What I had to bring in, and what I would say to others, you have to be creative. Um, there's a lot of new stuff and new challenges, and you can take the institutional training only so far. So when you come across something, that creative problem solving, that creativity, the vision, the dream casting, all that kind of comes into play when you're actually face to face with something that's insurmountable.
It's a great answer. Um, I'm wondering, you touched on this a bit in terms of challenges, but are there any other challenges that you face in your job?
Yeah, so global volatility is always a challenge. Again, my current field of work has been on the domestic operations, but everything that happens overseas affects that. My specific job now deals with weapons of mass destruction, and that was a very big thing 20 years ago. And when we start looking at the technology for that's been around for 4, 5, 600 years and hasn't gone away because it's really cheap to manufacture and it's incredibly effective. So while it was something that was in the heyday of our memories, it's still very much alive and well today. And small things like this pandemic, that's a biological threat facing America. Now, it was not engineered to do so, but it's still a natural born threat that we have to contend with. But there are so many other things out there that you don't even realize when you're driving on the highway. There's stuff in the back of trucks that, when they're mixed together, can be a very bad thing, and that happens every day. And so I think that's when we start talking global volatility, things that happen in Germany and oil shortages and the Southwest Asia, all that affects my day-to-day business. Um, so yeah, that's a big challenge. And then the other big challenge too is that I'm on a no notice recall. I can get a phone call today and have to be somewhere, anywhere in the United States in 6 hours.
Wow. Yeah,
So
so that's a challenge when you have a family and a life outside of your career.
it's also very exciting, but it's also, you have to plan that out and who picks up the kids and who watches this. And I don't know how long I'll be gone. We did that last in January. We called up people and they within 12 hours they were in DC and they had no idea how long they were going to be there. So there was a week, 2 weeks, and most of which were 35 days. Had no idea how long they were going to be.
Yeah, I think it's fair to say that the challenges that one experiences in a job like yours are going to be significantly different than the challenges one faces in other careers. Yeah, and worth consideration. But the the things that you love most and the rewards are probably pretty high as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So what's your work environment like? I know it might be a little bit different today. We see that you're working from home, but what is your work environment typically like?
Yeah, so I work in a building that was constructed in 1954. It's all brick on the outside, but it had been renovated several times on the inside. So it's what I would say a modern office building. I have an office with windows. I have full my office automation, so I have printers, copiers, even a fax machine. Um, and then the folks that are in my office all have some kind of desk or cubicle. I mean, we have modern lighting and HVAC systems and such. And we go to the field once or twice a year where we have to stay in a tent or a barracks, which has air conditioning and the internet and Wi-Fi. So it's very modern. There's not the old movies of the day where there's really austere conditions. That's a very rare occurrence these days. But yeah, my day to day is I'm in a very nice office building.
Nice. And would you say your work environment involves a lot of other folks too? So a teamwork, working with others, would that be expected as well?
Yeah, so I would say my office culture is a lot more collaboration. Again, we have a very unique mission that is a lot of the unknowns because a lot of the things, thankfully, hasn't really happened that often. So a lot of the unknowns is a lot of us just thinking of things and kind of talking about it based off of what we know from our training and what we've seen previously as being a member of the volunteer fire department or being a firefighter or police officer. All those things kind of contribute and collaborate into a pretty good plan for most things. So there's a lot of collaboration. There's a lot of teamwork. There is a lot of kind of mutual respect built over time where the people that are in my office, because we've shared so many personal experiences with each other, I mean, we're family for life. I'll leave this assignment in a couple of years and move on, and I'll still text them for their birthdays and holidays. So, yeah, it's going to be. I think the office culture is huge on teamwork.
Thank you. So, what are the salary ranges for various levels in this field? So, understandably, that's going to vary. And would you say that there are opportunities for advancement in salary or position should someone join the U.S. Army?
Yeah. So, when we start talking, there's on the Army National Guard and Reserve side, you are obligated to serve usually one weekend a month, 2 weeks a year. And on that, just starting off, one day of salary is about $225. So for a weekend, a training weekend, we call it drill, you earn about $450 to $500 for 2 days of work. And that's not bad. What's really neat about that is that you also have access to significantly reduced health insurance costs, dental insurance, and life insurance. So there's a lot of value, kind of compensation wise, for just doing the part-time 1 week in a month thing. But then, you get a pay raise automatically every 2 years for your experience. And then you automatically will, for the first few years, get promoted on time. So you'll go from a second lieutenant to a first lieutenant to a captain pretty much on schedule. You have to attend some courses and you'll get promoted. After that, it gets competitive. So if you're, our creative visionary leader, you'll get selected before others, and you'll be able to advance faster. Now, on the full-time side, if you go active Army or active duty National Guard, you start off making about $40,000 a year in base salary, plus all the other benefits. Now, again, you'll get promoted on schedule. You'll get your 2 years experience, and after about 10 years or so, you'll be making about 80 to 90,000. And what's nice about that is a universal pay scale, so it's posted on the internet for everyone to see. So when you encounter someone who's a major or lieutenant colonel or somebody, you know exactly how much money they make. There's no secrets, there's no hiding, there's no prior negotiations.
Thank you. So my final question for you is now, you went to the Greenville School. So you graduated from here with me, and we know all the courses and opportunities that existed. And I'm wondering if you could kind of talk to us about whether or not there were any classes that you took while you were here or activities that you were involved in that you feel directly contribute to your career now or helped you in some way in your career now.
Yeah, I did a lot of things in high school. I took art classes with Mr. Crossett, and then I also was on the other side where I took a lot of ag kind of classes over the other side of the building. And I also participated in like the newspaper, which really was the yearbook. So like I did a lot of things.
We have a blog now. We have a Greenville School blog, so maybe comparable to that.
Yeah, because anything you do where you have to work in a different environment and you learn a skill. And again, skill could be using a paintbrush. Skill could be using a welder. Skill could be typing. Anything that's going to bring a more creative application to something you've already learned. Because you've read about, books and you've read things in English literature, but how many people have actually typed something and published it? And I think when you start playing with that game and you start applying what you've learned early in high school and kind of choose different things instead of following one or two things, or not wasting your time, or like really applying those things you've learned was huge for me. Because I'm now responsible for a Facebook page because I'm responsible for public affairs. I wouldn't know how to do that if I didn't know anything about art.
I think that is awesome advice. Like, take advantage of the opportunities that are there so that you can apply the skills that you are learning. I think that that's perfect advice. Thank you. It makes it more relatable too. Sometimes we don't always see the connection of what we do now and how it will impact us later, but learning just how to apply skills is a skill in itself.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's so many weird examples. Like, I use a lot of generators. I'm personally responsible for the maintenance and functionality of 25 generators. Well, I took a small engines repair class in high school, so I know where all the pieces are. And so
Right.
when something breaks, I know what that is. And that's huge for me to just understand what's wrong and see how I can, best apply to fix it.
Yeah. Well, I want to thank you for your time. We know you have a busy schedule, and we appreciate you volunteering your time to these middle school and high school students here at GCS and giving back to the school here. Thank you so much.
It's my pleasure. Go Spartans.